Good evening and welcome to the Monomoy Regional School District meeting for Thursday, December 11th, 2025. I will call the meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. The first thing I would just like to say, which is not on our agenda, is that we have a new student school committee representative, Dan Morgan. So welcome, Dan. Our school committee representative, Maggie Powers, who was with us last year, moved on to be the school's student representative. So she comes each month and she shares the information that's happening around the school and the community. So now we have Dan, and hopefully he'll stick around for a while. Moving right along on our agenda, we will go to the approval of minutes from the November 20th, 2025 meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
All right, and moving right along to public comment. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anne-Marie Vrella. I live at 384 Main Street in Harwichport. Thank you in advance for hearing my concerns tonight. I'm here to inquire about the results from the recent surveys of the Monomoy school community. The first survey, administered back in the spring, which is required by DESE of all Title I schools in the Commonwealth, was on school climate and culture and is supposed to assist with future planning for parent involvement. I've been unable to find the results posted on the website. The only survey results I can find on the Monomoy website are from the Youth Behavior Risk Surveys in 2015 and 2017. Additionally, back in September, the district asked the community to complete a survey on culture and leadership for the equity audit in partnership with the Mid-Atlantic Equity Consortium. The website reports the current project timeline will have the results presented in late 2025. It would be helpful for the community to have these results before making a decision as consequential as hiring a new superintendent for the district. Finally, most recently, the students, families, staff, and community members were asked to complete a survey for the superintendent search back in October about the qualities the next superintendent should possess. On behalf of the community, I'd like to ask that the survey results be released prior to the community meet and greet sessions so that candidates will have an opportunity to address the specific concerns of the community. That's all.
Thank you so much.
Charles Gruska, 6 Teaberry Ave, Harwich. I'm going to read, and I'm going to go very quickly because I know it's a very heavy agenda this evening. As some of you know, monitoring the school budget is important to me, primarily because my experience has taught me that it plays a most critical role in determining the quality of the educational experience of the district students. Therefore, I attended the meeting of the School Committee Finance Subcommittee this past Monday to be as fully informed as possible. As a result, I got a preview of the first draft of the FY27 school budget that you'll be receiving and reviewing as part of tonight's agenda. It motivated me to do a closer analysis this week, and a couple of things jumped out to me that I thought were important to share with the committee in hopes that you'll keep them in mind as you receive the first draft this evening and throughout this year's budget process. I'm not going to steal any of Mr. McMillan's thunder, but I do hope he'll correct me and take issue with me during his presentation if anything I say is not accurate. As a layperson analyzing the budget, it appears to me that there are only two major areas of the budget over which the school committee has total discretion if it wishes to maintain a level services budget, if and when the budget ever has to be reduced. The first area consists of the requests from the principals, which they presented at the November 13th budget workshop, which are contained in your agenda packet and which you'll question and discuss under Agenda Item D3 this evening. The other area is deferring building maintenance and capital projects, which to me, as a taxpayer, would be penny-wise and pound-foolish because of the initial investment made in the buildings and the fiscal importance of maximizing their lifespan. It should come as no surprise to anyone if the FY27 budget draft contains an increase over FY26. My analysis is that the request from the principals represents only a very thin fraction of the projected budget increase. They're part of the budget that deals with instruction, which is where the rubber meets the road for the students. If a budget reduction is ever deemed to be clearly necessary, it seems to me that the only other area to which the school committee can turn is that of salary increases from step and lane changes, which you will see, along with health insurance, look to be the major contributors to any budget increase for FY27. However, salaries, as you know, are governed by contracts. Therefore, the only discretion the school committee has for making budget reductions in this area is to reduce staff positions, meaning the budget will no longer be a level service one. So on the one hand, I believe that the school committee must go away from tonight's meeting with a very thorough understanding of the requests of the principals and absolute confidence that you'll be able to defend them all the way to the town meeting floor if necessary. On the other hand, I don't believe that during my 10 years in the district there's ever been a more important time than now to present a budget that thoroughly reflects what the school committee believes is needed to achieve the goals it has set for all of its students. I say this because, as you know, the town of Harwich has expressed to you a concern about whether it will be able to meet its school assessment, while at the same time maintain all other town services and remain under its levy limit imposed under Proposition 2.5. The town is currently in the process of doing an analysis to determine whether this is going to be possible for this year and well into the future under the existing funding formula in the regional agreement. It is absolutely critical, in my opinion, at this time for the school committee to present to the towns a true and complete picture of what is required for the district to sustain its many high-quality areas, and also deal effectively with those areas where improvement is clearly needed for the learning and social-emotional development of the students. So, as you review the principal's request this evening, I believe it is critical that you be assured that there are not areas where the principals are holding back in any way from presenting the level of resources they believe will be necessary to improve teaching, learning, and educational environment in their schools, only because they don't want to contribute too much to any budget increases. This is not the time to be holding back and thereby inadvertently misleading the public that what is being asked with fully meets the needs of their schools. Your questions tonight should seek that information. A final thought as you go through the budget process. Learn from last year's experience. More to follow on that from me in the future. And now, like a great Netflix series, I'll leave you with that cliffhanger so you can move on to your big reveals. Thank you for your respectful consideration.
Thank you, Charles.
Thank you.
All right, we will move right on to reports and discussion, and our first item is the superintendent search finalist, the schedule, and the interview questions. So, So first, I will announce, or I will let you know that the process was, we brought a screening committee together of 13 members, and I would like to thank them. Excuse me. Melissa McGuire, Jen Kelly, Emily Tuccio, Megan Smith, Michael Schaefer, Andy Matheson, Jess Rogers, Brett Fortin, and Dan Morgan, as well as myself, Brad Schiff, Ryan Edwards, and Betty Gray participated in the committee. We had over 15, applicants that applied. We interviewed in our semifinal round 6 candidates, and we came to our meeting tonight to recommend 3 finalists. I'm sorry, I'm coughing.
Madam Chair, while you're doing that, if I may make a motion to open our meeting because we have a quorum.
Oh, yes.
Someone say so moved, please. I move, yes. Thank you, Madam.
Are you open?
We are open.
Okay, good. Okay. In no particular order. Vanessa Buchain, Dr. Vanessa Buchain, who holds a doctorate in educational administration from Boston College, a principal's certificate from Northeastern University, a master's degree in elementary education from Boston University. I might pass this to my vice chair.
Pinch hitting.
Sorry.
Just have a glass, drink of water. So Vanessa holds a doctorate in educational administration from Boston College, a principal's certification from Northeastern University, a master's degree in elementary education from Boston University, and an undergraduate degree from Colby College, as well as the diversity, equity, and inclusion certificate from Cornell University. Dr. Beauchesne is currently the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction from Rentham Public Schools, a role which he has held since 2018. Her previous administrative positions include Principal of Charles E. Roderick School at Rentham, Principal of John D. Runkle School in Brookline, and Principal of Parkview School in Easton. Her teaching experience includes roles as K-4 general and special education teacher, special education teacher in middle school, ELA, and math teacher. She holds active certifications as superintendent, assistant superintendent, and principal at PK-6, 5-8, and 5-12 in Massachusetts. The second candidate is Dr. David Thompson. David Thompson holds a doctorate in educational leadership from Northeastern University, a master's in education from Framingham State University, and a bachelor's degree from Framingham State University. Dr. Thompson is currently the interim superintendent of schools for Wilmington Public Schools for the 2025-2026 school year. His previous administrative positions include interim superintendent of schools for Mashpee Public Schools, superintendent of schools for Norwood Public Schools, assistant superintendent for curriculum, assessment, technology, and ELL for Blackstone Millville Regional School District, principal at Raina Middle School, principal at Qualters Middle School, and assistant principal at Duxbury Middle School. His teaching experience includes a role as a middle school science and pre-algebra teacher. He holds active certifications as superintendent, assistant superintendent, and principal 5-9 and 9-12 in Massachusetts, and is superintendent of schools in Rhode Island. Our third candidate is Dr. Robin Millen. Robin Millen holds a doctorate in educational leadership, elementary, secondary education from Johnson & Wales University, a certificate of advanced graduate studies in educational leadership from Johnson & Wales University, a master's degree in education from the University of New Haven, and a bachelor's degree from Charter Oak State College. Dr. Millen is currently the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment for Monomoy Regional School District, a role she has held since 2023, initially as Director of Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment. Her previous administrative positions include Director of Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment for Nauset Regional School District, Principal of Chatham Elementary School, and Assistant Principal of Harwich Elementary School. Her teaching experience includes roles as a grade 6 mathematics and ELA teacher and a grade 3 classroom teacher. She holds active certifications as superintendent, assistant superintendent, principal, assistant principal, and elementary teacher in Massachusetts.
Thank you so much. 'Tis the season for a cold. So, that being said, do we have any questions or comments? So I'm looking for a motion to approve moving these three finalists forward.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the three candidates that were presented.
Do I have a second?
I will second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That's all right, great. So the next step in the process, I will share the applications of the finalists with the school committee. So you will be able to review their full application before we have our interviews next week. We will have an opportunity to check the references. So each of them have provided 3 references. A suggestion would be to have multiple school committee members check the references of each candidate. I wanted to just put it out there for anyone who would like to call references.
When do they need to be done by the meeting?
Well, we interview on Wednesday. All right.
I'll volunteer also.
Okay. Great. So I will send the applications, and then we can divvy up which reference each of us is going to call so that we're not calling the same ones. Then the next step in the process is the candidates will visit our schools. On Monday, Dr. Bouchain and Dr. Thompson will visit, and then on Tuesday, Dr. Millen will travel around our district as well. We will have a forum for faculty and staff each afternoon. During the school days, there'll be an opportunity for students to talk to the candidates. And in the evenings on Monday, we will have 2 community forums for Dr. Thompson and Dr. Bouchain. And then on Tuesday night, we will have a community forum for Dr. Millen. And then on Wednesday, we will have the interviews for all 3 candidates. That will be an open meeting, so it will be live and recorded. Any questions?
I just want to mention the time that it starts.
Yes.
On the
For the forums or for the?
No, for the school committee interviews.
Oh, that meeting will start at 5 o'clock. We'll have to open the meeting, so the first interview probably won't start until 5:10 or 5:15, but we will open our meeting at 5 o'clock. All right. Moving right along. We will go to the MRMS roof submission to the MSBA.
Good evening, School Committee. Michael McMillan, School Business Manager. So following on from our previous presentation at the last meeting on the submission to the Massachusetts School Building Authority for a replacement of the roof at the middle school, we're just coming now before you to seek approval to submit the schematic design to the MSBA. So there is a memo in your packets. The district was previously accepted into the MSBA's program, and we were appointed a project team with an architect and a project manager. We've been working with them, developing the design for the roof replacement, which includes the budget. And the next step is to submit that information to the MSBA, and then they review all that, and we have a board meeting, which would be around February time. So we're sort of submitting papers now for a board meeting in February. And then once they give us the green light, we'd be going to it'd be included in the budget, and it'll be really included as a article for town meetings in order to get approval to take on the debt for the replacement of the roof. So the memo in your packets just outlines the key steps involved in replacing the roof. There is, let me just. So it's a fairly straightforward process, replacing the roof. There was just 2 issues which generated most of the discussion. One was around how much solar readiness to include in the design of the roof. The MSBA requires designs to include a minimum amount of solar readiness. So that doesn't mean we actually have solar panels up there. It just means that the roof is ready to install solar panels should you want. So this involves like electrical conduit and any structural changes that are required in order to support the weight of the solar panels. So we looked at 2 options really. One is a minimum amount of solar. We just put on one sloped roof with the best situation for maximizing solar. And that's the 4% of the roof. And so that's the minimum we would have to do in order to comply with the MSBA's requirements. We also looked at a much more extensive solar readiness approach, but due to the current structure of the roof, it would require additional structural support to significantly increase solar coverage to get that. So we did look at an option that would increase the structural support in the roof and get the coverage to around 20% of the roof. However, that came with a large price tag of around $1 million, $800,000 to $1 million in order to, because so much work was involved in increasing the structural supports. So that was one, so the solar was one thing, and the other issue we looked at was the type of materials to use for the sloped roofs. So if so the middle school roof has both flat roof sections and sloped roof, and the architect recommended using metal roofing for the sloped roof. So that was something else we investigated over the time of this process. The architect proposed a metal roof because it will last much longer. It will last 50 years plus compared to asphalt shingles, which will last 20 to 25 years before they need to be replaced, and is more resistant to wind damage and so on. So the 4 options you'll see in your handouts include the most basic solar power asphalt shingles, then a slightly different one, which is one sloped roof with a metal roof to allow the solar panels to be attached, which was $100,000 more expensive in the construction cost. Then the third option, which ended up being the option that the building committee went for, was to have to have metal roofs on all the sloped roofs, so metal paneling on all the sloped roofs. And the fourth option was to do all that plus have the solar. So these 4 options were presented to the school building committee. The school building committee went for option 3, which is a minimum amount of solar, but including metal for all the sloped roofs. The rationale was that the increase in cost to the district was relatively small, and it being around $300,000. But it was in the long-term financial interests of the district, because that would mean those roofs would not have to be replaced again for 50 plus years, compared to at least once with the asphalt shingles, the cost of which would outweigh the differential in including it in this project. We're also just at the schematic design phase, so we haven't finalized the design yet, and we'll do further exploration of the metal roofing as we go through into the finalization of the design. So we still might take that out as we do further exploration, ensure that sound isn't going to be an issue, ensure that the sound isn't going to be an issue, and but we can't, once it's gone to the MSBA, we couldn't then subsequently add it in. So we wanted to have it in now. It's a relatively small increase in the cost, but a long-term benefit, a financial benefit to the district. And as we further explore it, it can always come out, but it couldn't go back in. So that was the thinking around the school building committee. They voted to approve option 3. We then, we had some further discussions with the chairs of the school building committee, with the architect and the OPM, just to really think this through and talk about the approach, and we stuck with option 3. So that's the proposal that's in the schematic design at the moment. I would just say they're still finalizing the details. So one issue that's out there is that the building will have to be brought up to code for accessibility, as the total cost of this project plus the siding project breaches the threshold which requires accessibility code to be met. So there is some budget in this at the moment. However, we've applied to the board oversees accessibility for a waiver for some small changes that would be very costly. So that might bring the budget down. So hopefully this is the maximum budget that we'll see going into this project. The final part of the memo just outlines where we are with the process. This is the MSBA's process. We're in sort of scope definition at the moment. I drew a red box around where exactly we are. We're in schematic design. Once that's approved by the MSBA, we'll move into the funding, and that's when we come to town meeting for approval. All right. Any questions?
Any questions?
Just thank you for keeping the sound part in mind, because I was sitting here going,
Yeah.
no, and then
So
you said,
especially if you've sat here during meetings, or
In the rain.
So the architects assure us that it won't be a problem. However, we want to go, so we've asked to literally go to some schools that have a similar setup and make sure that it's not an issue. because we can't have that in classrooms if you're trying to teach. It's impossible. So, and so we can't, if we're not satisfied that it won't be an issue, we can take them out, but we couldn't put them back in later if we thought it was fine.
Michael, again, just going back a few weeks, I had raised the
Yes.
issue about the metal roof and just saying, did we want to invest in something in 50
Yes.
years when we just don't know whether,
Yeah.
who knows, there could be a whole new
Yes.
school in 50 years. But if you're saying the cost differential is,
rail. So
because
that
it's going
was-
to have to be replaced and it's not that much,
Yeah.
then that's, that addresses my
Thank you.
concern.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great point. Yeah, I think, so originally the cost differential had been significantly more. And so we were much less inclined to put it in, but once they were able to bring the cost down and they reviewed the estimates, and then we were more comfortable with including it at this stage.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve that the district submit a schematic design proposal to the Massachusetts School Building Authority for the replacement of the Monomoy Regional Middle School roof.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, so next on our agenda item is question and answers on the principal's budget request. We did have a budget workshop about approximately a month ago where we did not have the opportunity for any questions to be asked because our school committee did not have a quorum that evening. So we wanted to re-invite select board members back to this meeting, and we have all of our principals here so that any questions or clarification that you need from that meeting or since you've reviewed some budget things, you could ask. So I think we'll just do it by school, if that will work for the select board. So we'll have Chatham Elementary School start. And if you have any questions or clarifications from Jen Kelly, Chatham Elementary School. Oh, I'm sorry, I should have let you do that.
Oh, Jen Kelly, Chatham Elementary School. Good evening, everybody.
So they will not re-present their budget presentation, but if you have any questions for the Chatham Elementary School or regarding the Chatham Elementary School, now's the time.
You want me to come to the mic and ask?
Sure.
Thank you very much. Jeff Handler, Harwich Select Board. My only question would be one that Mr. Grushka presented. Are you asking for everything to move you into the 2027 school year without needing anything more? Is everything in your budget, 100%?
No.
Thank you.
And I should clarify, definitely we're very mindful in the things that I asked for, knowing that this was going to be a difficult budget year. So the things that I asked for were truly needed. We need we need an additional instructional assistant for our preschool program. I think some furniture issues and some curriculum issues to continue the good work we've been doing.
Any other questions for Jen? All right, we'll move right along to Harwich Elementary School.
Hi, everyone. Christy Catone from Harwich Elementary. Nice to see you all.
Thank you.
We're sharing the mic.
I'd ask you the same question I asked the former speaker. Is everything in your budget that you need to move into the 2027 school year?
So, like Jen says, we know that it's a hard budget year. We're very mindful in our requests, and what we've asked for really is the bare minimum that we need.
There was a funding request last year that was not approved. Math support software. Am I accurate with that? Chatham Elementary, Harwich Elementary, math support software?
I
Was it-
don't recall that.
Okay. I guess I'll ask it this way. Was there anything that got removed from the budget last year that you have either found funding for last year or you're not asking for this year?
No, anything that didn't get funded last year, you'll see in my budget
We'll
request
see
for
in your
this
budget
year.
request. Okay.
The things that come to mind are the risers for our chorus and other performances that are safety issues. We don't have backs on ours, and they're kind of rickety. We're afraid someone's going to get hurt. That's one request that's still there. The kiln is still there.
Oh, the kiln, right. I remember the kiln.
Those are the two things that come to mind.
Okay,
That
great.
are still there, that didn't get funded.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
Any other questions for Christie? Brad?
Madam Chair, yeah, Chris, you just had two questions.
Yes.
And I just, because it was a few weeks ago,
Yes.
I would have asked these questions that night if I could have. But can you go over the two most expensive ones, which are the decodable readers and the AV presentation system?
Yeah, the decodable readers, I believe they are $2,800 for a classroom set. And just because of the number of classrooms that we have, it would be kindergarten, first grade, and second who need those decodable readers. They're books that the children can take home to practice their reading, and they're aligned with UFly, which is the curriculum that we're using, or the materials that we're using to teach foundational reading skills. So it doesn't make sense to send home books that aren't aligned to what they've been taught. So we want to have more books that we can send home that they'll be successful with, because we know that success breeds more success. So they need to practice with those books.
And then the AV presentation system?
The activity room, the AV presentation system, the activity room currently is, we have audio, we have visual, but we don't usually have audio and visual at the same time, which is challenging for staff meetings, for presentations for children, when we want to do plays in there, for the children to be able to have microphones that work with visual that also works. It's very finicky. There's one adapter that works in the whole school. I've got it. It's got my name taped to it. We're hopeful that that never gets lost, because we've tried to order replacement adapters, and even though they should work, they don't work. There's one magic adapter that works, and it's literally, it's magic to get it all to work and get sound and audio working at the same time,
Thank goodness for magic.
right? Sometimes. And sometimes we compromise, we do something else. Sing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ryan?
I was just going to point out to the select board member that second to last page, the summary of needs requested, the first 4 items there that are italicized were the items requested in last year's budget that are carried moving forward. So I think everything else has been talked about except for the flexible seating steam table option. So.
You're so welcome.
Any other questions? All right.
I appreciate your questions. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Christie. All right, Monomoy Middle School.
Good evening, Sean Dutch, Assistant Principal at the middle school.
I'll ask the same question. Is there anything in this budget, or is there anything not in this budget that you left out for any reason going into 2027?
No, anything that's in this budget now would put us in a good position for the upcoming school year. The universally designed seating is something that was in the budget last year that was removed, and we've put it in again this year to help benefit all students in the building.
That's all I have for the middle school.
Great,
Thank you.
Awesome. Any questions from our board for Sean? All right.
All right, have a great night, everyone.
Thank you. Last but not least.
Mr. Handler, I invite you to the podium.
You've seen the movie before?
Yeah.
Okay.
The answer remains the same. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good.
Thank you for everything.
Of course.
Yeah, the question
Yeah.
remains the
Yeah.
same.
No, I would say that there's really only 2 items in here, to be honest with you, and on the last page, there is a request, there are actually 2 requests one for a business teacher and one for some curriculum that's actually going to be hopefully supported by a grant. So the 2 major requests, which is a math interventionist to support some of our challenges with math, and a halftime admin support for our internship coordinator. Those are our 2 major requests, and we were asked to be mindful and thoughtful this year, and I think we did that.
Thank you.
So,
Couple more questions if I could.
sure, of course.
Okay, so I heard a lot about Sherry Armstrong.
Yes.
Wearing a super cape.
Superwoman.
Superwoman.
Yes.
Super teacher.
I wish she was here, yes.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Have you ever met her?
I don't think so. I will soon, though. And after seeing I guess you would call it the rankings, I think it's called iReady.
The math data?
Yeah, that
Yep.
70%
Yeah.
of our students are
In 8th grade,
identified.
in 8th grade,
In
yep.
8th grade.
Yep, coming in, yep.
Coming in.
Mm-hmm.
So do you feel that half a full-time employee is going to help you enough?
The half that you're referring to, that's
Yes.
an admin assistant for Sherry Armstrong. That has
Okay.
nothing to do with the iReady.
It has
So,
nothing to do with that.
They are
So
not connected.
that's where my confusion
They
was.
are not connected. So Sherry is our career education coordinator, and she manages our internship program. That's
Okay.
one of
Yeah.
many things that she does. And she oversees about 130 to 150 seniors that are placed in our community. And she's in need of some administrative support. She is one person, and it's starting to become challenging to accomplish everything. But the math interventionist was a full-time
That's a
position
full-time.
request, correct.
Yeah, I just have
Those are 2 separate.
I have
Yep.
I have them mixed up.
Yep, you do.
So Sherry, thank you for pointing that out, by the
Yes.
way. Is half a full-time, is that going to be enough for her?
Half of an admin assistant, yes.
That's enough for
That
her.
would be sufficient, yes.
You wouldn't ask for a full-time instead of a half if you could?
I would not.
Okay,
I
great.
believe the half
Let's-
is sufficient.
And then as far as the math
Mm-hmm.
goes, could you, because I'm thinking from a budgetary
Mm-hmm.
standpoint here, how can we support the improvement of our students' academic experience in just specifically math?
Well, I think.
Does that make sense?
It does, it does. So to answer it long-term, I think the work that our elementary and middle school principals are doing right now is going to pay dividends down the road, but the reality is that the students that we have coming in now are a lot of our COVID kids that missed a lot of instruction. And if we don't address it now, the gaps that we're seeing, those will persist for the next five-ish years. I don't think that this math interventionist position is going to be forever. I think it's for the next maybe 1 to 3 years. And through attrition, we can likely phase it out. But if we don't do something now, I worry that those, we're looking at kids with 3rd and 4th grade skills. And if they only make 1 year's growth in 1 year time, they'll be, they'll have 8th or 9th grade skills by the time they're seniors. And that's not enough.
No, it's not. And
So
that goes
that's-
to the
that's
real
my-
crux of my question.
Correct.
Is are we hearing enough of what you need for support?
I believe this is sufficient, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jen.
Nothing further, Madam Chair.
Any questions, Ryan?
Yes, Ryan?
Yeah, I just had a question.
Yep.
So your presentation focused a lot on the math side of things. And just an example, I know SAT scores are only a tiny fraction of, students' capabilities. But the English side of it, if you do the math out, is kind of almost equally as concerning as the math. Is there a process in place to try to improve the English side of the scores as well? Do we
Yep,
need to-
that's a really good question. So as far as the English is concerned, so some of that data was holistic data. And if you break it down smaller, you will find that there are certainly students that have some lagging skills, but they are closer to on grade level than our math students. So our English students will accelerate faster than our math students. And that's why the focus is on math, and it should be on math. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure
Yep,
that.
that's a
you know,
really
we
good
don't-
question.
We don't need to address the English side with interventions
Very
as
good
well.
question.
Any other questions? Mr. Kelleher?
Hi, Mark Kelleher, Howard Select Board. I support Jen on the math specialist. I was a former reading teacher, and the earlier you could get to kids for basic skills, whether it be reading or math, I think is so important. So I'm just wondering, will you have enough kids prepared and I know we've spoken about the elementary and middle schools, but are they going to be prepared enough by the time they get to high school to be receptive to the math interventionists? Especially with math, it's so foundational that, as I said, I totally agree with the addition of that staff. I'm just wondering, and I'm not trying to talk on budgets, but the earlier you can get to students on basic skills like math and reading, the more success you will have in high school. So it's just not a question, but an observation. So.
Well, I mean, I can tell you right now, and I'm happy to invite Dr. Kelly back to the podium, but if you look at some of the data that is coming out of Chatham Elementary School as well as HES, the work is happening and it's starting to show. So thank you, because in 3, 4, and 5 years when those students are here, we shouldn't need intervention the way we do now. So, do you agree?
Yeah, I would agree. I would say, so we track students that need intervention, and for the first time in the 5 years that I have been here, we're actually reducing the number of students who are receiving intervention in 3rd and 4th grade, so we're hitting them early, to your point, and getting them caught up to grade level, and we're seeing really great results. So it's exciting, but it's a lot of work, and we're really committed to it. We still have a long way to go, but we've made some incredible gains in the last year or two. So.
Any more questions from us, please?
I'm seeing none. Good night.
Thanks, Jen. Are there any outlying questions that you have that perhaps Dr. Carpenter or Mr. McMillan could answer for any of you? Just here to listen. All right, well, get ready to listen, because we're walking into our budget presentation. So this is very entertaining. Yep. Our draft budget presentation. Just clarify.
Thank you. All right. So hopefully any minute this is going to appear. And all right. Okay. So Mike McMillan, School Business Manager. So this is our first draft of the FY27 budget. And as we go through this, I will repeatedly say that this is just a first draft, and that there are numbers that are going to come that we just don't have yet that will determine where we end up first in January when we provide our first sort of official draft and share that with the towns. And then when we end up, we'll have a final version around March before that heads into town meeting. So we have a ways to go yet before we have a final number. So where we're at right now is an increase of just 6.36% on last year's budget. That's $3,133,000, which would take us to $52,375,000. To get to this, so in order to develop this, we've been working with the principals and the leadership team, as you just heard. We've also, we put together, the staff whom we currently have, look at a number of different items, and that's how we get to this increase. where that sits in context, that would be one of the higher increases we've had. I think that's a reflection of a number of things we'll go into. So here I've highlighted the biggest factors, and it was interesting, and Mr. Gruszka said earlier, at the end of the day, we have control over everything in theory, but a lot of these are not decisions the school committee or the leadership team have taken, like particularly health insurance, utilities, or property insurance. Those are all items driving increases in the budget, which we have only sort of secondary influence over. The biggest number there is $1.3 million for health insurance. So right now we're assuming a 15% increase in health insurance costs. We will find out the actual increase when the Cape Cod Municipal Health Group votes the rates in February. There's a lot driving increases in health insurance at the moment, not least increased utilization of medical services, increased cost of those services. We have, on Cape Cod, we have restricted access to healthcare, as you know, because there's limited providers. We also have an older workforce, which means that there's older utilization of health services. So all those things are driving up our costs. We are also in the midst of sort of negotiations around how to cover the GLP-1 drugs next year, which are putting a lot of pressure on health insurance costs at the moment. So there's a lot of items still up for debate, and hopefully we should have some clarity over that. Well, we will have some clarity because the decision has to be made by February. I don't know where it's going to end up. I hope it won't be 15%, but we have a ways to go. The Cape Cod Municipal Health Group has been proactive and is renegotiating some of their contracts to help drive down costs, and hopefully that will help. Property insurance right now, I have 15% increase on property insurance. That might be a little pessimistic. It might not be quite that high. So I've been talking to our insurance advisor and some other companies just to find out where that is likely to come in. I think we might be able to bring that down as we get into January, which will be good. Budget requests from the principals, which you just heard about, and the leadership team, and I'll go through those again in a moment in the next slide. For staffing, so the staffing increase it's a couple of things. It's our step and lane increases, so that's just contractual increases. We basically take everybody that we have right now and move them to what they'll be in their next step next year, and make some assumptions or column changes, and that's our budget. However, we have also included some reductions in positions due to enrollment, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But that's brought it down because the staffing increase before we applied those was over $1 million, but with those changes, it helps to bring the budget down. Health insurance, we talked about. Utilities, electricity and gas just is increasingly expensive, and we've seen an increase in the last couple of years. We were a little around budget, and hopefully we'll be able to. So we are part of a collective purchasing agreement for electricity, which in theory gets us a lower rate, but recently it's not really seemed to help that much. We also purchase gas with the two towns. We're sort of a little collective purchasing agreement. I'm not sure. From what I'm told, collective purchasing of gas doesn't make as much difference. But when we're looking at rates, we get rate updates every month, and they are actually slightly down. So hopefully when we are able to sign our next contract, it might be a little lower. And then construction projects. So we do have an increase in our capital and debt-funded projects, which we'll talk about further in a moment. So these are the budget requests, the sort of additional items that our leadership team have identified, strategic enhancements. I have only included items over $10,000 on the list, just because smaller items, around $5,000, $6,000, it can be a little distracting to the conversation when they're all listed up there, and often we can find ways to fund those when other things are not required anymore from year to year, and we're able to fund them. So one of the items that jumps to mind is the kiln that hopefully we will be, that is included in the budget right now, but I haven't listed it up here because it's under $10,000. I'll just highlight a couple of these things. Some of them we've already spoken about. The staffing are the most, noteworthy because those are ongoing continual costs. We have included an additional instructional assistant at the PUPS program. That's the pre-K program in Chatham Elementary School. So right now we just have one instructional assistant in there, and with 20 students, that's just challenging for things like bathroom breaks and so on. And I'm led to understand that pre-K students go to the bathroom a lot. So there needs to be more than just one person in there to help with that. So that's that position. We also have a restorative justice Unit A position at the middle school, and I stress at Unit A because we do have a Unit B position in the middle school right now, and it's very effective, but because of the contractual restrictions and what a Unit B position can do, that's equivalent to an instructional assistant. She's been very effective, but her responsibilities kind of stop, and then she's having to pass more on to the principals, the principal and assistant principal. And if it was a Unit A position, that person would be able to go a little further, chair meetings, contact parents, and so on. So I've included the full cost of that up there. It will be offset by a reduction in the Unit B position because we'd be sort of converting it from Unit A to Unit B. From Unit B to Unit A. The administrative support for the internship program. So this is, it's a part-time position right now, and I have included for all these positions. I've included an estimate around health insurance. If we were able to find an existing, there's always a possibility we don't have to pay health insurance, but we make an assumption just in case we do. The innovation career pathway, the business teacher position, that's a 1.0 FTE. We have a possible innovation career pathway grant. The principal of the high school referred to this earlier. So that will offset that cost if we're successful with the grant. If we're not successful with the grant, we won't do the program and we won't need the extra position. So either way, it will be the same impact on the budget. And finally, the math grade 9 interventionist, also at the high school. All right, so I just wanted to touch on enrollment. So we do see where this is my projections for our enrollment for next year. So it's essentially I've explained this before, so I won't go into too much detail, but it's basically we just look at the average percentage of students that normally progress from first grade to second grade or fifth to sixth and so on, and we apply that to current year's enrollment numbers in order to get a projection for next year. So our projection suggests that our enrollment will continue to go down. It's actually not a huge decrease, it's around 3% or 50 students. But we have this cumulative reduction over multiple years, and we're kind of at a position now where if these reductions do continue, we are in a position where we can reduce the number of positions. So right now, the budget as it's presented includes reducing over 8 existing positions, 8.3 positions. Though once you add back on the 4.5 that are included in the requests, the net decrease is 5.2 positions. So we have a sense of which school these position reductions are going to be in. These aren't finalized. We haven't finalized exactly which positions these are yet. We're still kind of discussing that with the leadership team, but we believe we're able to make these reductions, and which will allow us both to reduce the overall budget and add the budget requests that are included in the budget at this time. So as I mentioned, we are sort of increasing our investment in our buildings and our capital infrastructure. We have another number of projects happening in this budget. We're continuing to replace flooring, network switches for the technology, some repairs at the high school to lighting in the auditorium, RT, and continuing refreshing the rooftop units at Harwich Elementary School, and starting a sort of long-term project to replace all the furniture in the classrooms, really at Chatham, Harwich, and the middle school, and replacing the auditorium stage curtain. And we'll continue to, we have a stabilization fund for capital emergencies, but we've been putting $50,000 into every year, and so we'll continue to do that. So that was capital. This is also part of these. This is the capital projects that are funded through debt. We have the construction loan at the high school. That's kind of ongoing. And the way that debt is structured, it goes down each year as we pay it off. And we have also included in this budget the very first payment on the long-term debt for the middle school siding and windows project. But so we've really just included kind of the minimal amount in the first year, because we're also looking to see if it would be possible, if we do go through ahead with a roof project, to combine the siding and the roof together and get the best rate, the best percentage, because that can make a big difference over 20, 30 years debt. And but that's an increase. So it's not because we had already budgeted $300,000 in related costs for this year. So it's not. It's only it's $162,000 increase for next year. And then I have included $30,000 for the middle school roofing project. That's the debt payments are not going to be beginning before the end of FY27. However, there will be some costs related to financing and issuing of short-term debt. So I've included that. So this is a slide I've taken to highlighting in the last few years, because we are increasing our reliance on other funds in order to get us to a budget number that we can get approved everywhere. And there's two real areas we've increased our reliance on. One is circuit breaker, which is funds we receive from the state to help support special education costs. And the other is school choice, which is funds we receive via the state for students from other districts that attend Monomoy. And we are a net receiver of students. So more students come to Monomoy than leave, and as a result, we have that helps boost our budget. So we are increasing our reliance on those so that we're kind of using up some of the contingency we have in both of those funds, and we're trying to do that slowly over the next few years to kind of offset the budget and while we use up that contingency, and so we don't have too harsh a landing when those funds run out. But I just wanted to highlight that because that is reflected in the budget. I also have included IDEA. That's a federal funding for special education, and Title I, which is also federal funding for schools. Obviously there's a lot of question marks. We've got a lot of question marks around federal funding at the moment, and it's not guaranteed. So at the moment, to be honest, we don't know what's going to happen. My bet is that the IDA grant will continue, because that's a critical for special education services, but there's no guarantee, and Title I is not certain either. So if either of those grants are not continued, you can see that the impact to the district would be, over $500,000, over $600,000 even. So that would be a significant impact, and we've assumed we will continue to get those grants into next year. Phew. Forgot that was animated. So
yeah. Fancy. Before I get into this, that's the budget, right? So that's kind of how we got to that 6.36% increase. And now I'm going to talk about the assessment and how we get to where the number that eventually goes to your esteemed colleagues who are joining us here tonight on the select boards for the increase to the assessments to the towns. Are there any questions on the budget before I get into the assessments? And
use your best guess in terms of the probabilities of the federal grants.
I'd say Title I is like 50-50.
Okay.
I'd say my feeling is everything I've heard is like IDEA is more, I feel more certain about IDEA, the special ed grants.
80% chance?
Yeah, I would say. But I don't know. So we'll find out. So the federal government will need to approve the budget, which I believe will happen I'm not sure, but I think it's around January time. I read that they'll need to approve it, otherwise we'll be into another. So basically, after the last federal shutdown, they just kind of pushed the can down the road a little, and they'll need to pick that up again in January. And if they don't, then they'll have to kick it down further down the road. So we'll have another government shutdown. So I don't know. short answer, hopefully early next year. All right, so the assessment calculation. So the assessment calculation is broken into 4 portions, which are roughly proportionately presented up here. We have the operating budget, we have debt, we have transportation, there's that little small one, and capital. Now, we use the state's school chart of accounts definitions for debt, transportation, and capital, and essentially the operating budget is everything else. The operating budget is then further broke down into the minimum local contribution, and then essentially we take off the minimum local contribution, and then we then section off the district budget and the elementary school budgets. And those numbers are developed, are then assessed to each town based on different calculations. So the minimum local contribution is a state calculation based on foundation enrollment and town finances. It looks at property values and per capita income for both towns, and it calculates the minimum local contribution that the state says that each town should be providing to its towards its education. So that's the first thing that's assessed. So the remaining portions of the operating budget are based on foundation enrollment of grades 5 through 12 for the district budget, and then actual budgets for elementary schools are assessed to both towns. So I just stressed the minimum local contribution because we don't find that out until January, and I've included an estimate of that in this assessment, but it can make a big difference because the split between Chatham and Harwich of that is then also, it is obviously critical to decide how much each town is assessed, but it also determines what portion of the operating budget is assessed using that methodology and what portion is used with the other methodologies. And so it can have, in 2 ways, have an impact on the assessments. Debt is then straight foundation enrollment shares of both towns. Transportation is a district enrollment, and capital, again, is foundation enrollment. So that's all the calculations go in. The operating budget is offset by revenue. So the state revenue, that's the Chapter 70 revenue, also excess and deficiency, and a couple other areas, all offset from the operating budget before all these calculations are carried out. All right, so these are my estimates of where our general fund revenue. So back here when this revenue bar, this is where this comes in. So I'm actually projecting a reduction in that at the moment, and it's driven by a few things. First of all, Chapter 70, which I have estimated based on what we know about a foundation enrollment, where we think it is right now, and also looking at trends in in other areas in the way the calculation is carried out. I think we're going to get an increase of a little shy of $300,000. Charter school tuition, that is based on the number of students who leave the district through to the charter school program. So if they're attending the Cape Cod Lighthouse Charter or Sturgis, then we actually get assessed a certain amount of money for that, and that's in the budget. However, the state also gives us a little bit back to help ameliorate the impact of that cost, but the amount we get goes down every year. And so it's kind of a good thing. We have fewer students going out, so we get less money back in return, but it does mean at this stage in the assessments we have less money available. I'm assuming our Medicaid reimbursement, the money we make on interest and our miscellaneous revenue, that's relatively small, are not going to change. Excess and deficiency. So we had increased our excess and deficiency from up to $1 million last year, and we'd like to try and bring that back down to $800,000 for this year. So excess and deficiency is a lot like the town's free cash. It's essentially how much money we have and how much money the school district has that has not been spent. At the end of the year, how much money we have that is not like a grant fund you have to spend on some particular, but how much money we have. And we're allowed to use that to offset the assessments. In recent years, our total excess and deficiency has been around $2.5 million for the last couple of years, and each year we used $800,000 of it. And it has been supplemented by things like we received money through FEMA during COVID, where we received more money through our interest generating, that we've generated interest with our funds. That's helped. But that's kind of slowed in the last couple of years, the additional funds we received. In addition, last year we used $1 million of that to offset the budget. And, you know, once that's all taken into account, my estimate of where we'll be this year is under $2 million. So we're starting to see that number go down. So obviously that number can't go down indefinitely, because if we keep using it up and we get to zero, then the general fund budgets have to make up the entire difference. So we want to kind of go down slowly in our reliance on that, not maximize it year to year and then all of a sudden have a $1 million impact, which would mean all that money would go straight onto the towns, and that would be to have a huge percentage increase in the assessments. So we're trying to kind of wean ourselves off of excess and deficiency to minimise the impact on the assessments in the coming years. Transportation aid is also, looks like it'll be down slightly. Transportation aid is made up of two things. It's what we think we're going to receive next year, plus it's if we had a surplus on previous years when we thought we were going to get, we thought we were going to get $800,000, we actually got $1 million, that $200,000 can be used for a future year's budget. So that, because, and the why we might receive more than we thought we were going to get is just because the state, early in the process says, Monomoy, you're going to get $800,000, and then as the budget goes through the approval process, that gets increased to $1 million, but we've already set our budget. And so that surplus can be used in a future year. So the surplus that can be used in this year is less than the surplus we had last year. And so that's why that transportation aid has gone down. So the net effect of all of those things is a small reduction in our general fund revenue, which obviously, if the budget goes up 6% and offsetting revenue goes down, that puts more weight on the town assessments to make up the difference. All right. So just before I do get to the punchline, one of the things that impacts the assessments is the foundation enrollment. So the foundation enrollment is the number of students who live in the towns and go to public school districts, regardless of whether or not they go to Monomoy. So if they go to Nauset, they're included in our foundation enrollment. And that's the reason that we use that number is because that's, well, A, it's in the regional agreement, and B, it's what they use to determine your Chapter 70 funding. And so that's the orange line. So you can see how the foundation enrollment has this general decline over the last 13 years. And then the blue line is that minimum local contribution, so that amount that the state has said each town must contribute as a minimum to the running of the district. And you can see that that number has gone up, just as the calculations of the state determine. And the final number is my projection. So we are expecting foundation enrollment in Harwich to go down. It's around 40 students, about double what we're seeing the reduction in Chatham. So that might impact the eventual minimum local contribution that we get from the state, but it'll depend on some other figures. That's actually not reflected in other parts of the assessment because we don't use that number. We use the previous 3 years' numbers averaged to determine this year's budget. So there's kind of a delay in the impact of changes in the foundation enrollment, and by spreading it out over 3 years and not just taking each year on its own, it kind of lessens the impact of a year-to-year change. All right, one last slide before we get to the assessments. So this is just reiterating what I said at the beginning. There are a number of figures, a number of assumptions in here which have a significant impact on what the final budget and the final assessments will be. Health insurance is 15%, as is property insurance. The budget is first constructed with the staff we have right now. And, one of the things about the schools is that the person in the job dictates how much they get paid. It's not like you just swap someone in and out and it's the same amount. The amount of experience they have, the amount of qualifications they have determines how much they get paid. So that's what I've used to create the budget. If somebody leaves or retires, then that can benefit the district's budget. And as we go through this process, as we find out about those, the budget will be updated for that. School choice and charter school enrollment, as I mentioned, those figures impact our budget, both the amount of money we receive and the amount of money we have to pay out. And I've made an estimate based on historic data and some provisional information for this year, but we won't get the final numbers until early next year. State aid, excess and deficiency, and the minimum local contribution. Excess and deficiency, we've not had that certified yet by the state, so we're still waiting for our auditor to finish that work. Then it'll be a certified, if we don't see the decrease that we're expecting, or if the decrease is much more than we were expecting, then we might have to look at that number as well. So this is a draft assessment. As I mentioned at the beginning, I mentioned a few slides ago, there's the local minimum contribution, and then everything above that, there's transportation, capital, and debt. So the net effect of these, of everything I've discussed on the assessment, is a 6.47% increase for Harwich and a 6.22% increase for Chatham. And that's excluding the debt on the middle school project, because that's already been approved. But once that is included, the increases go up to 7.6% and 7.1%. There's supposed to be a 7 that's got cut off there, but 7.17% for Chatham. So that's where we are right now. So I know that's a lot of information, and as well, a lot of it's provisional, so it might change. But this is definitely, you now see all the factors that are going into the development of this budget right now, and you get a sense of where we're at. I think we have, reflected the needs of the principals, but also taken into consideration, enrollment and how we can reduce staffing in order to be, responsible and fiscal partners with our towns. And we will see over the coming months exactly where we end. And hopefully, hopefully things will break our way over the next coming months, particularly health insurance and state funding and so on. But that remains to be seen.
Questions?
You will have lots of, as I said, it's like drinking from the water, what do you call it? The fire hydrant a little bit. You will have lots of opportunities to ask more questions. We'll be talking about this ad nauseum, so don't worry if you've not got a question right now.
To our Harwich Select Board, since you are technically in your meeting, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
All right.
Thank
brilliant.
you.
Thank you very much.
Before we move on, you're welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting, but if you wanted to adjourn your meeting in public, you can.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Yes,
for
thank
coming.
you for coming. We appreciate it. Moving on to the sabbatical request. Thank you.
Thank you.
We had that presentation at our last meeting, and tonight we need to vote to approve it or not. So do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion to not approve the sabbatical as requested and proposed.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
I'm going to abstain.
Abstain. Okay. All right. Moving right along to the MRHS STEM field trip to London. Dr. Otto presented the trip to us at our last meeting, and we need to vote on it this evening. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the MRHS STEM field trip to London as presented.
Second?
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Next, we have the MRHS donation to the Cape Cod Healthcare from the Spirit Club. So it looks like the Monomoy Regional High School Spirit Club would like to make a donation of $165 to the Cape Cod Healthcare Foundation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Nope, yep. Next is the MRHS donation to the Independence House from the Animal Welfare Club.
I'll make a motion to approve the donation of $300 from the Monomoy Regional High School Animal Welfare Club and Young Women's Club accounts to Independent House.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Next on the agenda is the cancellation of the school committee meeting that was a special meeting added on December 18th. In our screening committee, we decided that since we're interviewing on Wednesday, the 17th, and we're deliberating in public session, we will be able to announce the candidate that night. So we will not need to have the meeting on the 18th. Any discussion?
Isn't it our usually we put off one meeting to vote on something like this?
I guess the thought was because we were deliberating, we wouldn't need to come back the next night because we will be able to make the decision that night.
Okay.
So, any,
Yeah, I think that's what we discussed, and that's what we thought was, we were, if we're going to be deliberating, then call for a vote that night.
I thought that this was the deliberation, the next night. That's the feeling
No.
I got from the original presentation.
When actually, what we've been advised is that the great majority are deliberated and voted on that night. I think when we were first planning and just sitting down together, we were thinking, okay, well, just putting all these dates and putting that together. But when we asked a representative who had been advising us, he said that over 90% of all the deliberations take that place that night and make a decision that night. So he has guided us 100% of the way so far, and we felt confident that that's the way to go.
all right, moving on to the first reading of policy files.
First up is file CBD, the superintendent's contract. We just reworded this based on the mask policy, so you can see the changes there in red. Any discussions on this one? Alright. Then the next one is file CE, administrative councils, cabinets, and committees. We just added the mask source down at the bottom. They didn't have any recommended changes. File CF, the school building administration. There were no changes recommended.
Right. Sure.
Go ahead.
Just a question on that, and just putting the revision down on that, Ryan. I didn't see any revision on that page.
So this is listed under first reading, so I think once we do the second one, it'll change to reviewed instead of the revised there.
It's one that's been reviewed, but there's been no changes suggested, so we're bringing it forward to
Okay.
see if everyone's still okay with it.
Okay, all right.
So file CH, policy implementation. We combined this into one policy. We dissolved file CHA and CHC. So they seem to fit better together. And they were reviewed by MASC, as you can see, with no changes recommended, other than the fact that we combined them. So next up was a combination of file CHB and also BGD. So they were the exact same policies. MASC does not have the separate policy for file CHB. So we're going to dissolve that one, and then it's the exact same language in file BDG, which is where MASC keeps that policy. So that was our recommendation. And then the last one for the first reading, file CHD. This was reviewed by MASC with no changes recommended. The only thing the committee did, I apologize, it's not highlighted in red, but we just changed school committee chairman to school committee chair on that third line there. Any other questions on that one? And that is it for the first readings.
All right, so we can move those all to second reads for our next meeting.
Sure.
Next on the agenda are the second readings of multiple policies.
All right. Does anybody have any objection to one motion to capture the second reading of all of them?
Go for it.
We insist.
I will make a motion that we accept the second reading of file BGE, policy dissemination, file BGF, suspension of policies, file BHC, school committee staff communication, file BIA, new school committee member orientation responsibilities, and file CB, school superintendent, as presented in the packet.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstain? All right, moving right along to the approval of the prior encumbrances. Or encumbrance.
Encumbrance, just a single encumbrance. This is for a somebody went on a training course last year, and they just got the paperwork to us, and so we were to reimburse them for their costs. And so we use FY26 funds, even though that it's an FY25 cost, and that's why it requires school committee approval.
Any questions?
I just have a question in general. Is there ever a cutoff for encumbrances?
I mean, not really.
Not really.
Because if somebody's incurred the cost, I mean, we say you're not going to get it if you don't get it to us, but the reality is if they've incurred the cost and it's a legitimate allowed a cost, then, we have to reimburse it. So maybe like if it's 7 years statute of limitations, they might not get it, but
it's something like in this case, they would have been approved
yes.
prior to doing it.
Yes, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So they were approved,
All right, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the payment of $450 of FY25 invoices not previously encumbered as presented to the school committee.
Second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay. Before we move on to subcommittees, when I was having my coughing fit, I did forget to bring our attention to our interview questions. We just need, if we can just review those briefly, and if you can all pick 2 questions, hopefully you don't all want the same 2, then I will bring those to our interviews next Wednesday with our names on them so that we know who's reading one. So if you have your heart set on a number, just, what do you want?
6 and 11.
6 and 11 for Betty.
And I'm open to sharing if someone else has their heart set on class with.
While people are reading, I can just say out loud that the process that we went through to come up with these questions was the school committee members shared individually with me suggestions of questions to ask for the finalist interviews, and I took those questions and was able to combine them into 13 questions that still included all of the themes that we wanted to get across and questions we wanted to ask. And then I'm bringing them to you so that we can decide who's asking what.
And these questions are different than the ones that were asked at during the screening.
Correct, that also, so that we're not asking the same questions. Although there'll be some repetitive themes.
Can't help it.
Yeah.
I can't help it too. But none of these questions were the same ones that we had during the screening process last week.
I can do number 2 and 8.
2 and 8. Steve?
7 and 13.
3 and 5.
Just assign me 2.
Okay. All right, and I'll assign Jackie 2, and we will be ready to go. Okay, so now we will move to subcommittee representative and liaison reports. For our finance subcommittee, Jackie is our chair. She's not in attendance, but basically what we discussed is what Michael presented. Do you have anything else, Dr. Carpenter, to add to that?
No, I think Michael did a great job.
I think he did a great job, too.
Madam Chair, if
yes.
I can just add one thing. One thing we did talk about was obviously our school committee goals. One of them was to add the universal pre-K for the second year. Obviously, with the number that came in the budget, we would have to decide if we want to continue to pursue that or try to push it off till next year. But that was a discussion we talked about.
I was just going to point out that one of the things that we're also looking towards is there's the potential for grant money next year to help with an implementation of it. So I think the want is to continue funding the PUPS program in the upcoming budget cycle and enhancing it with enough instructional assistant support to cover bathroom breaks. But also, we'll also be surveying families this spring in preparation for building a case for grant funding to, there's just not a grant available this year, but it's anticipated that it'll come back next year that could actually, hopefully, get us to that point of putting in place universal pre-K and hopefully be in a better position budget-wise next year.
Okay. The superintendent search subcommittee, I think I covered it all, or we covered it all, by announcing our finalists and talking about the process and the next steps. So we will move right along to superintendent's report.
At one of our past school committee meetings, I mentioned that Chatham Elementary School was recognized as being one of 92 schools across the state to hit the point of having math and literacy achievement scores back to pre-pandemic levels. The pandemic set learners back really across the board, and it's been a while to see schools bring the achievement scores back up. There was a conference that happened December 3rd that Chatham Elementary staff were invited to. They gave a presentation sharing best practices, what they attribute some of that forward movement in academic achievement. So they hosted a session titled Fin by Fin, maximizing PBS or PBIS and MTSS to improve student outcomes, focusing on the journey that the school had to transform their responses to intervention into a fully integrated, multi-tiered system of supports, which led to exponential growth across all areas of student development. And then lastly, we would like to thank Stop and Shop for the donation of 12 dozen rolls to the Monomoy Regional Middle School for a multidisciplinary project. The students learned how to churn butter in science class and then practice their descriptive writing skills in English class. And they learned the science behind making butter, then wrote about the process, and then were able to sample the butter on said roll. So thank you, Stop and Shop.
Excellent. All right, we have covered all our action items. We have had the presentation of warrants, so I am just looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And we will adjourn at 8:01 PM. Have a good